If you're someone who works out from home and wants to know just how you can strengthen your arm with minimal equipment, then you're gonna wanna watch to the end of this video, because today I wanted to share with you 4 effective exercises that you can use that will work the entire muscles of the arms, strengthen the arms using just one kettlebell. Let's get started. Now, if this is your first time here, my name is Dr. Mike, and I'm a physical therapist providing tips on how to build strength and longevity with your body. Today, I'm gonna take you through a kettlebell workout that you can use at home to help build strength in the arms. Now, keep in mind, the weight of the kettlebell will dictate whether you perform each exercise with one arm or 2 arms. But rest assured, I'm gonna be providing you with 2 options. So regardless of what weight you have, whether that's a lighter weight or a heavier weight, you're still gonna be able to perform all of these exercises. And there's gonna be 4 exercises in particular that we're gonna run through. Now, as I'm working on these exercises from home, I am running through this routine for about 3 to 4 rounds with 10 to 12 repetitions at a time. So for the purpose of this video, we're gonna do 10 reps on each side with each exercise, just so you can see how the flow of this workout is gonna go. So the first exercise we're gonna get into is the kettlebell bicep curl. Now, right now I have a 15-pound kettlebell. So I'm gonna first demonstrate these exercises using one arm, and then if you have a heavier kettlebell, I'll show you a second option that you can use to build muscle in the same area. So we're gonna focus on the bicep curl. We're gonna start in this supinated position where your palm is facing up, most importantly with the elbow fixed down at your side. Most of the common problems I see with the bicep curl is people raise that elbow up and it gets out of alignment with their torso, or maybe they'll even have their kind of shoulder caving in forward with their elbow behind them. I really want you to isolate that bicep and those forearm muscles by keeping the elbow down at your side. The most important part when we're working on any of these exercises is that we try our best to work through full range of motion. That is key if you really want to lengthen and strengthen the muscle. So I'm working on 10 repetitions here, trying to keep that palm facing up, trying to really squeeze that muscle at the very top, keeping that elbow down at the side. We're gonna say this is 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. We're gonna switch to the other side. Now, say for instance, you're working on this and you have a lighter weight. One method that you can use is by making this more challenging and to find the right stimulus is you can work on some eccentric contractions, meaning that squeeze at the top, but most importantly, you lower the weight slowly. And what this is going to do is increase that tension on the bicep, makes this exercise a lot harder. So maybe the weight that you have is just too light. So eccentrics can be a great way to kind of spice up that workout, okay? Another piece, if the weight is too heavy, is you can do this performing with both hands, okay? And now your elbows are still gonna be fixed at your side, and now maybe instead of 15 or 20 pounds, you have a heavier weight, but you're using the assistance of both of your arms to flex your elbows and to really stimulate those supinators and as well as the bicep area, okay? Moving on to the next piece is going to be an overhead tricep extension. Now, when we're doing this, our key is to try to keep the elbow as close as we can to midline versus allowing your elbow to kind of go towards the side. So try your best to kind of keep that in front. Now, if you lack shoulder mobility, this exercise might be quite difficult for you, but I want you to just try your best to work on this. It's better to start lighter than more heavier with this exercise, okay? So my palm is going to be facing up versus kind of turned in like that. I'm going to have basically my elbow trying to get it pointing up towards the sky. And I like to use my opposite hand to stabilize my arm so that I'm not kind of moving all over the place. So with this position here, I'm working on really getting a good stretch at the bottom position as the weight kind of pulls me down. I'm feeling a stretch through the tricep and the lats, and then I'm extending that elbow as far as I can all the way up, okay? One of the things that you really want to focus on is that stretch at the bottom as you extend up, okay? So we'll work on 10 repetitions there. And then you'll go ahead and switch to the other side. I'm gonna stabilize my elbow right here, ensuring that I'm not kind of moving my shoulder or moving my arm. Notice if I don't stabilize my arm, it just becomes a shoulder press. But really we're trying to isolate the triceps here, back here, and we're really trying to keep that elbow fixed as we're extending that arm overhead. And if you do this correctly, you're gonna feel all the triceps working, and it's gonna feel even a little bit in your core because you're having to stabilize that weight overhead. Now, if you have a heavier weight, option 2 with this exercise, you're gonna use 2 hands. Now, you're not gonna be able to stabilize your elbows here, but the fact that you're having to hold the kettlebell is gonna keep your elbows close to your body. And what you're gonna do is extend those arms overhead and slowly allow the weight to kind of bring it back down to feel a nice stretch at the bottom. Once again, extend those elbows overhead and come back. So I'm gonna knock out 10 of these for you guys right now. There's 5. Okay, 6. Also keep in mind of your torso position. We don't want you compromising too much of the lower back. Really stay engaged through your abs. Try your best to stand up nice and straight. And the way I kind of do this is by squeezing my bottom and contracting my abs while I'm doing this overhead, okay? I think that's about 10 there. Good. Next, we're gonna move on to the kettlebell shoulder press. So we've worked on the biceps and the forearms. We've worked on the overhead extension using the triceps muscle. Now we're gonna focus on more of the front of the deltoid as well as the tricep muscle as well with the pressing motion. So using a kettlebell in a single arm, maybe you have a good weight to perform this with one arm. You're gonna have that starting your thumb facing towards you, and you're gonna be in this front rack position. So anytime I mention this front rack position, I'm talking about keeping this close to your body. In one of my videos, I discussed the front rack carry, a lot of the carries that I think are super beneficial. I'll link that video up here, but I go over kind of how to hold that kettlebell properly in that front rack position in order to do a lot of the exercises that we talk about on this channel. So elbow is gonna be close to your body, and you're gonna start off by really thinking about pushing your fist straight up towards the ceiling, okay? Also notice the plane of where my elbow is coming down and up with. I'm not out to the side pressing like some of the common mistakes you'll see people make, but I'm not like super narrow where you can't really raise your arm overhead. I'm right in between those two, and I'm pressing straight overhead using the kettlebell to try my best to lock out that elbow at the very top, okay? You'll feel this in the deltoid as mentioned, and even in the tricep. So we're gonna perform this for another 4 reps because my arms are burning quite a bit just running through this first round with these exercises. We'll do 2 more here. And 1. Now, if you have a heavier kettlebell, maybe you don't have access to a lighter kettlebell, as promised, we're gonna provide 2 options. So the second option, if you have just a heavy kettlebell, you wanna do this with 2 hands. Now we're performing this by pressing straight overhead. Doesn't really matter kind of how you hold this kettlebell, whether that's on the handle, whether that's above, or whether that's below on the bottom. Either way, just make sure you have a good hold of it. And the same thing you're gonna do here. Now we're pressing straight overhead, and we're gonna do 10 reps right here, okay? You'll notice it's going to be a lot easier when you're performing both arms at a time versus if you're just doing one arm at a time. It's really gonna challenge your core more because you're having to balance out one side versus being nice and symmetrical when you're doing 2 arms at a time. So you'll run through about 10 repetitions of that, and then we're gonna move on to our last exercise, okay? So the last exercise we're gonna get into is the kettlebell row. Now this exercise is gonna target the biceps and the forearms, but also the rear deltoids. So it's gonna really help shape that muscle on the side of the arm there. Now you're gonna start by kind of bending yourself over, and I always like to kind of support myself with my elbow placed on the front of my opposite leg. Also notice I'm in a staggered stance versus bent over like this. I always feel like the staggered stance helps my balance a little bit more. If this is too difficult bending over, you can always do this on a bench if you have access to a bench, okay? But I'm gonna do this as if you guys didn't have access to a bench, so you can just use your own leg as well. So I'm gonna start by performing this with my thumb facing upward, okay? And the kettlebell is directly over my shoulder. It's not in front of me. Also, it's not underneath me too far, but it's directly over in line with my shoulder. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull that elbow up straight towards the sky, and I'm gonna feel all my lats kicking on because this is obviously working the upper back muscle. But most importantly, it's going to be working the biceps and the delts here. So you can perform about 10 repetitions. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you're gonna go ahead and switch to the other side there, working the same thing. Really trying to focus on that squeeze at the bottom. Also, just like in the previous exercise like we talked about, if the weight is too light, to make this a little bit more challenging, you can have a pause at the top with an isometric hold, but most importantly, working on that eccentric descent, where it's gonna really require more grip work, more bicep stimulation. It's gonna be more challenging, just basically more time under tension. Okay, just like that. Now, I wanted to give you guys a second option with this one, is if you have a heavier kettlebell, instead of doing a single arm, you can do a double arm, okay? So now you're gonna be performing, pulling the kettlebell straight towards your belly button, really feeling those biceps and forearms kick on, and you're still squeezing through the back muscles, your lats. And after 10 repetitions, you are gonna feel all of those muscles of the arms working there. Now, those are my favorite exercises that I like to use to help strengthen the arms using just the kettlebell. And notice you really don't need a lot of equipment. Now, if you're interested in learning what I believe is the most underrated exercises that you can be using to build strength in the shoulder with just a kettlebell, then check out this video right here. Until next time, I'll see you later.